so much, Yatin, and it's so nice to join with our friends from all over the world, actually. So I know friends from Kenya, from Dubai, friends from Singapore, so many of you joining in. Also friends from India who are here and probably hear us in different cities. The idea was to bring you a panel today that represents radio across the country, okay? And of course, there's Mumbai here, there's Delhi here, and there's Bangalore here. So thank you all of you for giving us your valuable time, especially my panelists. I'm going to start by asking a really, really basic question, guys. And I know the answer to all of these questions, but please let me play moderator, AKA dumb. All right. So I'm going to start with you, Rishi, because we want to set this really high up there. None of us can match the years of experience you've had. But just for fun, let me ask you, how long have you been in the business? Where all have you been in the business? And where are you now in the business? Tell us.
Well, since I started when I was 12 years old. Well, suffices to say that it's been a few years. I actually started my career at a radio station called Times FM, which then eventually became Radio Mirchi. The Times of India had leased a few hours from All India Radio, and they called it Times FM. And eventually, the Information and Broadcasting Minister shut that down, and I moved to All India Radio FM. So I worked for the government frequency, and then private radio came back in its true authentic form, whereby different frequencies were auctioned. I was at a station called Win 94.6. Then after that, I was at Radio Mirchi. Subsequently, I went to the World's Place Satellite Radio Network, and I helped set it up in India. And post that, I was with Radio 1 Hindi, and now I'm currently with Radio 1 English. So that pretty much sums up what I would like to think is.
So you started at the age of 12, and it's been how many years now? How many years? Just give us a count.
Yeah, a couple of decades, a little more than a couple of decades. Yeah.
What shines through is the fact that you never wanted to go off air. And having said that, let me give that segue to our dear friend K from Bangalore, 94.3 Radio 1 presenter. K, how long have you been in the business? And did you start at Fever or at Radio 1? Or how's the journey panned out for you? Please tell us.
Oh, I've been at multiple stations. That's one station, including Radio 1. And it's been great. So no, I've had, it's been 7 years now. 7 years. Fun fact, I didn't always start as a presenter. And Rishi knows this. I was actually an intern. I started as an intern, and then went and did, I did the digital producer role. I did the RODP producer role. I did the morning show producer role. I then did the morning show co-host and sidekick role. And then I did the afternoon show when Radio 1 went international. And then I did then of course, now it's been a while since it's been morning show on Radio 1. So yeah, that's 7 years to answer your question.
7 years, fantastic. That's something that you and I have in common, because I got hired, a couple of years ago. That couple of years ago was 2006 at Fever, okay? And Fever was just starting out in Mumbai. And I remember that, I applied for the job of a producer. And I think that's what we have in common, because I started thinking, you know what? मैं ये Hindi नहीं बोल सकती, because I really couldn't, I was a Xavier's girl, and I was like, Baya, please थोड़ा सा butter लगाओ.
Oh man, me too. I was from Xavier's. I did that. Wow, okay.
And then I was like, oh my God.
Me too, postgrad.
Oh my God.
Oh man, look at that.
And then I was like, oh my God, paise chahiye at some point, because I was making documentary films. And then I said, isse paise nahi banenge didi. So and then I said, okay, you know what, I'll apply. And I could not bear to work in television. And that's how radio happened for me. And let me tell you that, because I was like, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a serious filmmaker. So I do not want to corrupt my sensibilities by being part of any sort of TV. Okay.
My God, we have the same stories. Like, I'm not even joking. Yeah.
And then at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll work in a radio station. So I applied. I can say I can make shows. I can make like movies. If I can make movies, I can make a radio show, dude. Please. And I joined radio and I applied, and it was my first job. And I still remember I got 76,000 rupees at that time for a producer's job. And it was wonderful, because then I started producing or pretending to produce this show. But obviously, I would narrate incidents all the time. And then Gaurav Sharma, who is still the boss, okay, he's still been here 15 years now in the same radio station. He said, "Tum on air jaogi." I was sidekick and co-host, okay, evening drive, drive time gangsters. That's what we used to call ourselves. This is the first female doubleheader on radio in Mumbai. And then on, of course, I've had my own show and my own space. So that was quickly, of course, my journey. So I want to now take, and I want to take this to Stutee. Stutee, first off, I want to thank you for coming on the panel today, because you represent the radio nightmare, which is you have a terrible sore throat. And a lot of people have this question saying, जब आवाज ठीक नहीं होती तो आप रेडियो कैसे करते हो? I'm like, आप life कैसे करते हो should be the question. So over to you. Do you want to quickly tell us how long has your journey been in radio and where all have you been?
So I'll start with the caveat that I do not sound like this. I sound better than this. So, just putting it out there. But so much fun listening to all of you. So I also started a couple of years back. I was an intern actually with Fever for about 2 months.
Wow.
Then I went to Radio Mirchi, where I started with the 9 p.m. show, and then I went everywhere, the afternoons and mid mornings and all of that. 6 years there. Then I took a break. I was reviewing films for a TV channel, which then shut down. Then Quint happened and video reviews happened, and a lot of fun with the camera happened. And then I came back to Fever. So in a way, a full circle. And so host the morning show here. And apart from this, since reviewing films, watching films is my passion, I continue to do that. And I have a talk show with HT Digital called Aur Batao.
I was just going to say that. I want to say, you when you were saying that, I want to say, Shruti, aur batao. But totally lost out on that opportunity.
Wow, guys, I want to take this to just, dropping. The reason why we did this quick journey introduction is that you might notice that most of us started off as either producers or interns. And a lot of people who have questions saying, hum radio kaise aa sakte hain? That's, one way to, of course, join or at least be part of the process of creating inside a radio station. Once you're in, they'll never let you go. Okay, because there are very few of us. So then hum log aise pakad lete hain logo pe, we're like, kabhi mat jana yahan se. Okay, so that's what happened. My next question, of course, is going to go around the room in the same order, starting with you, Hrishi. The title for today's talk is, Radio Reimagined. That's our tagline. Okay, the pivot that we've been making from radio presenters, and as Yatin rightly said right at the beginning, there was this zamana when we were all just voices. And then this social media happened. We all started having faces and fan clubs and fan groups. And then social media gave way to digital content in a very organic way. And now we're all, of course, part of not just being radio hosts, but also digital or content creators. Talk to me about, going from that, okay, just being a voice to this. As someone who's seen so many years, did you ever look at this move with any skepticism? Did you feel that we were diluting radio in any way? Or did you say, it's par for the course? I'd love to know.
I mean, the reason one has survived for so long is because one just rolls with the punches. I mean, if you get stuck in a time warp and say, oh, this is the way things used to be, I'm constantly trying to evolve and change. So not for a moment did I question the natural progression of radio becoming a digital medium. But what I can tell you is that it was very, very difficult initially for me to adapt. And I remember having this conversation with you not so long ago, Rohini, just before the pandemic struck. And I was like, I've got the hang of Twitter. I'm doing very well because Twitter doesn't allow me to, doesn't require me to put up a picture. I can just comment. I can use my intelligence, my gray matter, which I believe I have a fair share of by God's grace. And there's no pressure on me to put a picture out there. And I remember saying to you, Rohini, that I was struggling with Instagram. But then I just looked around me and I said, if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. And predominantly what I was going through and why it was tough for me initially, and why this is a lesson to everybody who's listening, is that you can overcome these things. I was going through what is known as the fat man or the obese man syndrome. I'm very body conscious. And I was like, why do I have to put out a picture each time I have an opinion? But then I think I owe it to being cocooned in what I call a cocoon of love. When you're surrounded by beautiful women and girls, which is my wife and my two lovely daughters, my mother, my mother-in-law, I was able to perhaps feel that I have a warped view of myself. And so I mean, look, there are kids out there who are influencers and who have 2 million followers on each platform. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm the expert on this. I mean, I have a measly 1.5 lakh on Instagram and a measly 1.5 lakh on Twitter. But
Measly.
I'm trying. But yeah, I mean, if you compare it to these kids who have 2 million and 3 million, honestly, I'm still learning. But the lesson is that I broke the shackles of my own mind, and I'm able to today, put a face to my radio. I mean, there was a time when we used to joke about this, right? I have the best face for radio. The day is here and now. The future is right here. And I just said to myself, maybe I can still post pictures on stuff that I'm passionate about. I mean, everybody who's been listening to me knows that I'm passionate about sport. I'm probably the only guy who doesn't only cover cricket and football, but even things like mixed martial arts, eclectic sport, mainstream sport. I'm passionate about business. I'm steeped in business, CEOs. And I said, if I can just put all of that stuff together, and the fact that, I've been a journalist for so long, I've never viewed myself as a radio jockey or a radio host. I've always thought of myself as a radio journalist. And, if I'm invited to all these junkets, and if, senior journalists are called together by the ICC or the BCCI for exclusive press conferences, or hangouts with movie stars, maybe I can just put that out instead of trying to be too experimental. So I've just kept it simple,
Instead
and
of
it could have
making
worked.
a dance reel, instead of making a dance reel.
Yeah, let me put it this way. I realized very early on that might not be my forte.
What's beautiful there, Rishi, is the fact that you have given us a very good lesson at this point, which is play to your strengths. The digital space is pretty much like radio, right? It's about putting yourself out there in the best way that you want to present yourself. And there is acceptance. Ultimately, it's an audience, right? And the audience will find you for what you serve them. I want to take this to Kay at this point, and thank you, Rishi, for that. Kay, I would say, just with the advantage of youth that shines on your face, I'd like to believe that you have been the digital adapt for you has been probably easier. Did you always look at radio and digital as an extension, or are you feeling it more and more now? Is there a pressure, or are you more naturally skewed towards making content for multiple platforms at the same time?
Being extremely honest with you, I am. How do I say this? I'm. I know I feel that pressure, but do I succumb to it? It's pretty rare that I do. I'm also one of those old school romantics at heart. So when it comes to traditional, I like my radio. I like my audio. I do a lot of work with audio from a broadcast perspective. So which is why from a podcast perspective and audio perspective. But I'm still figuring out my niche weirdly, and this is so weird because I've done film and and production and stuff like that, and that comes very easily to me. I just have not capitalized on it, and I'll tell you, and it's not for any reason, but I think a lot of times when you feel the pressure to do things because other people around you are doing things, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you want to genuinely do it for yourself, right? I think that's the right reason. So, taking what Rishi said into account, when he felt the need to do digital, he did it with the things that he loved, right? But he also, on some level, he wanted to do these things on digital, right? For me, on one hand, if I say, for example, put out a silly reel, hypothetically, right? I should really want to do that silly reel, right? I'm not doing the trend just because somebody did, like, whatever that step, what is that? That I'm not doing that. But from that perspective, off late, you see that whole game of quantity over quality. Does that make sense? And that's a tough game to keep up with. So once you start down that rabbit hole, it's going to be very hard to come back out. So I hope I answered your question.
You have answered my question in a way that at this point, I think most radio jockeys are, or most radio companies for that matter, are trying to figure the pivot, because we know radio, guys. Everybody who's attending the session has some idea of how to run a radio station or wants to join a radio station, right? However, I know for a fact that it'll come down to this. Like we never looked at radio as like deliverables, That means it was par for the course. You knew if you're a radio presenter, you show up at 7 a.m., your breakfast show is till 11 a.m., and we just do that show every damn day. There was never a question of, do I need to do it every day? The consistency was just part of the discipline of radio, which I'm very, very, I'm very particular about. I speak about this a lot. A lot of people say, what is the secret of staying in the business for so long? I'm like, do you think you have it in you to do this job, the same job every day with the same level of enthusiasm and discipline, never being late, never missing a link, never missing an update? Because that's the mental makeup that a radio jockey used to have. However, time has come to take that same mental makeup and apply it to a different medium, which is digital. Because
I completely agree with you. And from a perspective of, sorry, answering the second half of your question, which I didn't, which is saying that, because coming from a younger place where, I can maybe relate to both mediums, digital and this thing and things like that. It is very easy to understand, like maybe it's easier to understand trends. It's easier to see why this is going here. And this is people are picking this piece of content up or this particular audio up on Reels quite a bit, or why this is trending. I find it easier to spot that. So from that perspective, I feel like noticing trends, especially from a younger generation, is easier for me at least.
Yes, the discussion at some point, maybe we'll do a round 2 of this panel a year down. And I hope there will be a lot more people joining us, because I want to come to a state as a medium where we are not doing the trend spotting, but the trend setting. And that is going to be, where the medium will really grow. Because that needs to happen. And that's what I wish for the medium. And I wish for all of us to come together and do. Speaking of doing reels, I wanna take this chance to, before I come to you, Stutee, I wanna show my audience a reel and the sort of stuff that we're doing right now. So I hope the audio and video works. This is what we did yesterday for DJ Laddo. सूरज हुआ मध्यम कमलनी ये लड़की गेट आउट डैड मैं लंदन जा रहा हूँ एमबीए करने कौन है ये जिसने दोबारा मुड़ के मुझे नहीं देखा चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी चौक में चांदी की चमकी से चटनी चटाई लड्डू क्या मैं आपके साथ रह सकता हूँ क्यों क्योंकि मेरा नाम यश है Hey, Rohan, हम लंदन आ गए। Dad, I'm at the mall. बाबूजी। Dad, आपको भैया को घर लेके आना ही पड़ेगा। कह दिया, सो कह दिया। Cool, bro. Right, Chand. DJ.
Oh man.
Laddo. कंगने। क्यों? सूरज हुआ मध्यम कमलनी ये लड़की गेट आउट डैड मैं लंदन जा रहा हूँ एमबीए करने कौन है ये जिसने दोबारा मुड़ के मुझे नहीं देखा चंदू के चाचा ने चंदू की चाची को चांदनी चौक में चांदी की चमकी से चटनी चटाई लड्डू क्या मैं आपके साथ रह सकता हूँ क्यों क्योंकि मेरा नाम यश है Hey, Rohan, हम लंदन आ गए। Dad, I'm at the mall. बाबूजी। Dad, आपको भैया को घर लेके आना ही पड़ेगा। कह दिया, सो कह दिया। Cool, bro. Right, so 1 second, let me just stop the loop. But the reason I wanted to show everybody this is because this is the sort of content that, we're trying to create as digital creators. Yesterday was, and it's content which is so current. It was 20 years of K3G, and I'm part of a retro radio station, and we have this concept called, can we do these movies in 60 seconds? And the reason I played it twice is because how it happens when you play the reel, the first few seconds goes on mute. And sometimes I always say that reels have this quality of whatever the views are, you should do straight half, because आधे time तो लोग एक और बार देख रहे हैं सिर्फ audio सुनने के लिए. But I wanted to show you all that so that you all can, just think about a piece of content that you all are really proud of digitally, okay, and come back, because that's my sort of like thing there. And I'm going to take this to Stutee in the meantime. Stutee, I have followed your work, not just in the radio, but outside of it as well. You truly are a content creator. Okay. You've always been one, whether it's, your passion for movies and you review movies. I've seen you on the Quint, you play characters. So tell me, how does one honestly like make the time and, and not burn out? Because this needs to be our next set of questions. Do you feel that content creators, especially when you're doing a everyday job and you have a breakfast show, it's not like you're doing some weekend ka show, or you're doing some, non-prime time. You're doing prime time radio every day. How does one not burn out? What do you do?
I can tell you what I shouldn't have done, which is talk when I had a bad throat. So that's the result of this. But so very honestly, you can do everything if you are okay with having zero social life, zero personal time, and stuff like that. But jokes apart, um, I started radio, and the romance of radio was primarily because of that one voice that you cannot see, that holds attention, right? That is what I loved about radio. And then somewhere in the middle, I started digital. And for me, these were two very different things. Radio was, theater of the mind. Radio is sound and sound effects and voice modulation and how you hold your audience, and it has its, own advantages, and the way you think radio is different. And digital was very different. So I used to review films for radio. And then when I started reviewing for digital, uh, I understood how I have to think visual and not audio. So the sound effects I used, or the way I could convey so much by speaking just half the sentence. I couldn't do in front of the camera, but there were other tools in front of the camera. I had expressions, I had gestures, I had pictures, video clips that would aid and help me, convey what I wanted to. So they were two very different things. And at that time, this was 2015, not so long ago. And yet, when I came back to radio for what I call my second stint, a lot of people said, now, just join radio full time. Why do you want to continue with digital? And I said, no, I enjoy that. And cut to a couple of years later, when the camera has entered our studios, like it's there. You have a celeb interview, you need the camera. You're interviewing your city mayor or councillor or politician, you have to have it on camera. So this coming together of audio and video, of radio and digital, that I found challenging. For me, handling both separately was easy. I could do that. But when the two came together, that is when I was like, what is happening? Suddenly, they're not letting me do the radio that I want to do. But like Rishi rightly said, you have to move with the times. Yeah, that it is what it is. And the one way I made peace with it is that at the end of the day, it is about reaching your audience, because the audience today has split up. You have, earlier you just had radio, but now you have podcasts. Now you have people who listen to their own curated playlists. You have people who love YouTube. You have these news digital portals where people are hooked onto. So whatever way I managed to reach out to my audience, to the person who likes me, if it's through Quint, if it's through my movie reviews and they see RJ Stutee tagged, and if that gets them to tune in the next day for my morning show, or if they listen to me and they say, hey, let's Google, what does she do? Or reviews, let's then subscribe to that. That's advantage radio, that's advantage Stutee, because I'm just, that's how I managed to reach out to maximum people. Though the challenge is, like you said, Kay said, Rishi said about, because I figured this, that Instagram is for different kind of content creators. It's not even a question of whether I can do it, but the question is, do I want to do it? That's a third job. That's another. You're thinking Insta, you're thinking 60-second reels. Before this, you were thinking 30-second reels. And I had to kind of figure out what my strengths were, what I wanted to do. So, I had the talk show or which is long form content. It cannot happen in 60 seconds, or say a podcast. So play to your strengths, but I think we cannot, we have no choice but to move with the times and understand that the camera is truly and fully entered our studio. And now it's completely on us on how we interact with both the microphone and the camera.
That's really interesting. Thanks for that perspective, Stutee. And what you said was awesome. You said that I want to reach my audience wherever they are. I think that's what we want to do as brands, right? As a radio brand, that's what we want to do. You're no longer banking on just one medium. If they're on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel. If you're on Instagram, we have an Instagram channel. So that's, I think, the key to understand all of this like attempt and effort. Rishi, I'm going to take this to you because, now just Stutee said that, we are a content hub, right? By pure virtue of being a radio station. You have content walking into the studios. Where else do you get celebrities walking in, government people walking in, doing phone calls with people of interest? If someone's won a Miss Universe, they probably do a phone call with you. You have that. So that way, I think the digital extension is obviously natural and also very unique. Just think about it, because nobody else has the sort of access that radio stations have. So, however, the question is, what do you see as a challenge? Okay, forget the presenters. Okay, talk about the readiness of a radio station. What do you think a radio station needs to do to equip themselves to go digital, to form this sort of like seamless, okay, content, like reach out? What are the things that you might have seen you had to add on? Like, when somebody sent a question saying, how is it in a pandemic? As you can see, Rishi, this is his pandemic avatar, where he's got this mic, he's got this like, so we all transformed. We didn't have our studios. We did this from our homes. The 60-second reels that I showed you, that was shot in my house. So we do what we can from wherever we are, because see, primarily we are content creators, right? So wherever we can, we'll create that content, and we need very little. But as a radio station to go digital, Rishi, what do you think we need?
You have to be kitted out. I'm a massive advocate of tech. Even before the pandemic happened, I was trying to evangelize tech out of home or wherever you are. One of my earliest idols, A.R. Rahman, was sitting in hotel rooms in LA and making Tamil cinema soundtracks and BGM. And very early on, I realized that if you have the right kit, you can just put out content from wherever you are on the planet. And Kannan knows this, K. Machado knows this. When he needed to kit out his home studio, he reached out to me.
I called Hrishi. Hrishi.
Yeah. So when Glenn needed to kit himself out, the Fever breakfast jock in Bombay, he called me. If the radio station tech staff need help, I know this sounds like me blowing my own trumpet, but suffices to say that they're free to call me anytime. And the reason for that is round about the turn of the decade, I realized that my parallel profession, which was voiceovers, required me to travel back to central Mumbai, where I was doing radio out of, again in the evening. Classic case, if you finish a 5-hour radio show, Kannan and myself do 5-hour stretches. Sorry to rub it in, Stutee, Rohini. So you finish a 5-hour radio show, you plan.
People are wondering why is this coming? Because we do 7 to 11 is our time. Cool.
Yeah, and we hate them for that.
Yeah, correct. So, you finish, you wrap everything up, you plan for the next day, and you reach Andheri, and you're called back to famous studios in Mahalakshmi, which is, again, in town for all your non-Mumbaikars here, or some studio in Bandra or in the western suburbs or elsewhere. So, a decade ago, I just started kitting myself out, and my wife joked saying that we probably would be in a sea-facing apartment somewhere if we hadn't spent so much on tech. But I'm fascinated by tech, and I'm constantly trying to upgrade, buy new microphones, buy new sound cards, buy new gear, software, and stuff like that. And that's what radio stations need to do. And I find a lot of radio stations, some were very quick on the uptake, and they just jumped, and others were just waiting. And obviously those who waited got left behind. Yeah. And content creators who tech themselves or kitted themselves out very early on honestly, when the government announced lockdown, I was up and running to go the very same morning.
Same day, yeah.
I was up running, and I said, let's go live from where I am. So I was prepared, and right now, at this point in time, a lot of people have realized after the pandemic that they've got to be kitted out. So I'm really happy. So to answer your question in one line, radio stations need to be kitted out. The right cameras, the right sound cards, everything that is digital. You were only thinking audio. You were only thinking of microphones. But how do you marry that microphone to a visual software? How do you film with multiple cameras and do seamless edits? How do you start working on editors? All you guys were talking about being interns and producers. Producers were being hired now. They're being asked if they have video editing skills. So, you hire talent that is video ready and digital ready, and you kit yourself out, and then you face the storm.
Yes, that's also interesting. I'm going to try and take some questions along the way as well. Question for speakers: how is the work-life balance for being a creator and a full-time jock? Kay, do you feel that pressure?
What is that work-life balance?
Nice. There is no work-life balance. Our life is our work, and our work.
But I'm being honest. Like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. No, that's true, and that's for any job. So if you're if you're that person who's like asking, I need work-life balance and all, you probably don't like your job as much as you think you do. That being said, I want to just add something onto what Hrishi said. Hrishi's like all for kitting out and all that stuff. For people who are maybe in a nascent stage, it's a little expensive, dude. Okay, it is. Okay, like the mic that Hrishi is sitting on right now is 45 grand. Okay, the one that he's sitting on right now. So it's not easy to just pick up something, and then you need a cloud lifter, you need a card, so it's not easy to kit out. So like I'm what Hrishi is saying is right once you reach a certain phase in your life, but dude, I think we can all agree that start small and then eventually get to there. If you're a student or something, no one expects you to buy.
True. I mean, I started off with a $5 grand mic,
Yeah.
Shure built. Now, of course, they've raised their rates. It's become $8 grand. But it was a $5 grand mic because I couldn't afford it by that point in time, So you start small. People are now podcasting out of their phones.
Correct.
So,
we're also talking about not.
No, I want to come in here.
Yes.
Since Hrishi is talking about his expensive tech kit and that mic, which is some 45 grand, I want to say how
I didn't say it. Kay said it.
I said it.
I must tell you how I recorded my show during the pandemic. So I put my mic inside my kapde ki lakdi ki almari. That's the best acoustics, and that also actually, I actually enjoyed doing it from there. Or मैं तो सारी आवाजें I would let them hear, pressure cooker, washing machine, ghanti, and all of that, and that also gave us content.
I saw a video where you talked about this on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes, I think as content creators right now, everything is content. So answering two questions at one, the pandemic, how did you do it without the equipment? And number two, work-life balance. You're kind of working all the time. There used to be this perception before digital, and thank God for digital, because now people see a lot more of the creative process of radio jockeys, right? Earlier, you used to think that आप सिर्फ 5 घंटे काम करते हैं. Wow. And you're just like, नहीं, ये 5 घंटे के लिए हम 12 घंटे, उससे पहले prep करते हैं. But now what's happened is that wherever you are, see, you as radio presenters or radio, content creators, you are the job. I am the job. I can start a radio show or a digital thing anywhere I am, as long as I have my phone in my hand right now. I can broadcast live from wherever I am, thanks to live, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So there is no limit to when you can stop working. However, I know there are young people on this call, and I know there are older people on this call. It's an interesting mix. I am someone who really, really stands for, please find that work-life balance, because as creative people, you need to recharge. Okay. And unless you take a break, okay, you're not going to be able to recharge. Also, your body physically, okay, needs rest. So including your voice and your mind. And Stutee is like vehemently doing this, and because it's important. So and let this not be a session of us. You should not take away, "Arey, log to 24 घंटे काम करें." Nahi, we have to take our time. Family, friends, birthdays, anniversaries, they're important.
Absolutely.
Take your leaves, they'll all
One
matter.
thing that we all collectively, I think all four of us can agree on, is the value of good sleep. There is no amount of money that can give you that beautiful
And
feeling.
was is us? What is sleep? No, I'm just joking. Rohini is right. You got to have your downtime.
I've got an interesting question for Rohini saying for me, how was it like filming your first reel and how long did it take to finish? Interesting question. Very happy to answer because the movies in 60 seconds has been like I don't know, like a brainwave, right? It happened in the pandemic. And let me tell you that when you are in your toughest time, what you think is your toughest time, your lowest low, is when your best content will come. All right. And I'll give you a great example of Stutee, who's, she does so many things. But one thing that I love most that she creates is a podcast. It's called Mera Wala Grief. It comes from a personal place where, she talks about her own loss, but in context to how other people are dealing with their loss, right? And similarly for myself, okay, please listen to that podcast. It's damn good. Okay. hdsmartcast.com, go look for it. With us, it was the same. I was like, you know what? I want to make, and there was this pressure, there was this chat in our office. 6 महीने तक my programming director was bombarding us saying, रील्स बनाओ, ट्रेंड पे रील्स बनाओ, ट्रेंड करो, डांस करो, डांस करो. हमने कहा, बट मैं डांस नहीं करती. What do you do when you don't dance, right? How do you still stay relevant? How do you still get the views? So you have to understand, this is going back to the previous conversation where we said, please do what is you. Okay, so what is me? I love movies. My brand is Radio Nasha. We stand for nostalgia. So here we are. Suddenly I had an idea saying, you know what? 6 months after she's been after my life for a reel. 6 months. But creative processes take that sort of time. So about 6 months ago, we did our first reel and it was, I don't even remember which, it was Lagan. Now I remember.
Oh, I loved that one.
We did
That was
Lagan.
probably my favorite. Of all the ones you've done, Lagan is my favorite.
We did
You know
Lagan.
why? Because your get-up as Amir Khan, no, is too good.
It's no budget productions. We to make fun of everything. We're like, budget to milega nahi, to kya kare? No budget productions bulate hain. The more fun you have with it, okay, the more fun it's going to be for you. Okay. So it was in June last year, I remember, 30 seconds Lagan. How much time did it take us? 4 hours. Okay. Now it takes us 5 or 6. There's 2 hours of prep that goes into writing the short breakdown. Okay. Because I play all these characters. In the reel that I showed you right now, my mother was sitting at home. I said, "Tu ban Jaya Bachchan." Okay, so because I had her around me, I was like, you will become this person. Normally it's just me and my producer, right? So again, it's just about finding that one person you can do masti with. And the best digital content, guys, will only come out of your pure masti, because what are people using digital for? One of the insights in a research that MTV did recently was that people are not looking for stoic, okay, or life changing, or in the digital visual content terms. Okay, what are people looking for? People are looking for time pass. I want time pass, and that's an insight I want to share with everybody here, especially radio owners, especially owners of radio stations. Try and keep it simple, try and have fun with it. All right, there's a now good question.
Sorry, can I just say something before you go on to your next question? Stuti, Mera Wala Grief is just, I don't know, man. I tip my hat to you. You are
It is
just,
truly a beautiful,
you are
very
just
sublime,
something
sublime
else.
show.
I cannot understand what it took for you to create something like that.
Yeah.
And most people create things out of joy, but you created something out of grief, which is unbelievable. Like I probably will not do justice in explaining what I feel about how you did this, but just I tip my hat to you.
Yeah, we
Really.
do. All of us do.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Okay, this is interesting. Hi, Rohini, how to handle people and friends who don't support you and make fun of you. It's demotivating, heartbreaking. After that, I just lose the passion to work. Change your friends, bro. Don't change your job. Okay. Please just remove these people from your life. Okay, you want to take that?
Yeah, I do. Dude, I'll be honest. There are, if you think there are trolls online, no, you have not been introduced. Like, ask Rishi. Rishi, like all the years of doing radio, you get these guys, no, who like, and the funny thing is, the only difference is in digital, on a comment section, everybody can see it. It hurts even more when it comes on a WhatsApp number or a WhatsApp line or a phone line. Someone's called you to say something, and she will relate to this so much. It hurts even more because they take the time to be, and I'm going to censor my word.
I don't relate to this. I'll tell you why. Because I have always
Because you don't have trolls, Rohini. You don't.
Radio has been the kindest medium, and that's a great segue. It's a great question, Adiba. Because honestly, as radio presenters, it's not like it's a one-way communication, guys. we still always have the phone line. Social media existed forever, okay, for the last 10 years at least.
And we had a WhatsApp number, if not anything else.
WhatsApp number. So I don't know, Sivaye mera gana kyun nahi bajaya, okay? There's never been any trolling, okay, at a radio station. However, this side of things, which is like, oh my God, you got to watch what you say, people will like, get offended, whatever. So Rishi, Stutee, any hacks? Do you even have
Sorry,
trolls?
could I say one thing before you hand it to them?
Yes, please.
Because and this is a point for everybody to note. In digital, when you want to show appreciation to someone, you would write something in the comment section, show appreciation. Maybe you DM them. But there is a different type of love, and I think Stutee and Rishi will agree with this. When they know that it's a one-to-one WhatsApp message that is coming to you, and the love you get on that, far supersedes any hate you could have ever gotten. And that is a beautiful feeling when you get a message that says, hey, you know what? I don't know if you know what a great job you do. I was having a horrible day and you made it so much. It's something else. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Rishi, Stutee, are you guys troll ready or tech ready, but are you troll ready?
You're absolutely right, Rohini. Radio is the kindest medium. Like you said, we have our phone lines open and we are going to take your calls. And you would expect people to call and abuse and say all the mean things that I'm sure they're capable of, because go look at digital trolling. I got introduced to the term trolling after, one started doing digital. It's never happened in radio. And Kay, you're so right. You've such heartwarming stories of how, people have responded after listening to us on air. And I think all radio jockeys have some special story that they hold very dear. And, that is the moment when you feel, okay, this is why I do. This is why, for morning jocks, this is why I wake up in the morning and I turn up because of what happened. But for me, the hack is very simple. I am very clear. The people I take online trolling. I treat them exactly how I treat people in real life. So I don't speak to anyone who abuses. I don't speak to anyone who comes over with unsolicited advice. And so I have absolutely no no love for people who abuse, who troll, because the anonymity gives them that power that they feel they can make you feel terrible, and comments can hurt. So I think, mastered the art. I tell myself, jinke muh real life mein nahi lagungi, why should I speak to them online? Why should they have that
Access.
level
Access.
access to me of on the virtual plane, and if they can't do that in the real world? So it's very simple. Block and mute are my best friends. It's as simple as that. We all understand what constructive criticism is. I don't even need to say that. We all understand that. That apart, anyone else who abuses, who just wants is there to get your attention and make you feel terrible, block and mute. That's all there is.
So block and mute are your best friends. These are quotable quotes. They got to be on T-shirts for FabMarket. All right.
I have to say, I just have to add to this, saying that as presenters, we've been trained not to be overtly risque. And because, like you said, once you get into this job, it's very difficult to leave. Most of us were trained to not be overtly risque, which is why, we don't do things which will get us trolled in the first place. I'd like to say that in our defense. And having said that, it's a kind audience. That's something I've got to agree. All four of us unanimously agree on that. Very, very kind. You look at what the news broadcasters have to go through, sometimes deservedly so, sometimes not so deservedly so. And what the stand-up comedians have to go through. None of that as far as the radio audience is concerned.
That could also be the beauty of the medium. Radio is such a personal medium that everyone feels like you're speaking to them. And so once you manage to have that connection, they don't want to be mean to you. They do not show that side to you. And
yes.
those
However, I want to take you back, Stutee, to the fact that this is digital. Okay. I'm talking in the digital world. I'm not talking
digital world, of course.
The digital world. And I'll give you an example. Recently, a dear friend, a radio presenter, was trolled very heavily, okay, for an interview that she'd done. And it was tough because, at the end of the day, as radio presenters, we have to understand that this is a different audience made of different people. Okay. And they have a different level of access and they are enjoying the show. So they're enjoying putting that comment there. They're enjoying 100 people liking it. At that time, the radio station has to come together to protect your presenter. Okay. As long as you believe that nobody's done anything wrong. Because see, trolling is not necessarily about what you do right or wrong. Trolling is just about a point of view. Okay. So remember, this is something for radio stations to take back. Please stand by your presenters because they're more vulnerable. If you stood by them on radio, okay, it's time to extend that same grace and courtesy to them in their real life outside because you want them to represent your brands digitally.
Well
so
said.
please understand that you need to extend that grace throughout. Lots of questions coming in, but I think to kind of like take this towards an end, it's interesting. Somebody said, Kareena Kapoor is an RJ. Do you think it's important to be an influencer, to be a radio host? I will take this because I have very strong opinion on this. There will be times when a lot of radio, bosses might turn around and be like, you know what, we need to go digital. Why don't we just hire influencers? Okay. And then what happens to the radio host, right? The radio host who loves doing that job every day. The way I look at it is that if you can get your this influencer to come at 7 in the morning every day and do a 5-hour show every day in the same level, please do it. Okay. What does it take for us to do it? Okay. That means we have also to say that's just being, funny about it. The truth is that you could exist. I have parallels. I have a radio jockey in the breakfast show at Mirchi in Bombay who's not really visible or whatever, who's kept his presence outside, his face outside. And I still think that, but he has an account, he still has followers, So you play your game, yeah. Okay, you play your game. What is your influence? You figure what that's supposed to be. Otherwise, tomorrow there'll be more and more actors doing radio shows, and they should, But at the end of the day, again, question mark. क्या वो सुबह 7 बजे आके ट्रैफिक अपडेट देगा? जब तक नहीं देगा, तब तक हम लोग रहेंगे.
I have another point to add on that, and I think that anyone can be a host. Okay, and I think influencers, or whether it's, say, for example, a college student who's listening to this, anyone can be a host because content creation now is democratized. Everyone can do it. The question is, will you be a good host? Probably not, right? And I'm saying this from a perspective, I'm not of arrogance or whatever. I'm saying that every one of the RJs on the entire HT network, okay, all have this unbelievable skill of asking the right questions, holding the right conversation, moving content in the right direction. That, trust me when I say this, I'm sorry, Kareena Kapoor might be great, she will not be able to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Kay, for that. As I said, we have about 5 minutes. Oh, this is a quick one. What is the biggest difference between a radio jockey and hosting a podcast? Stutee, you should take this quickly.
I think, radio by definition is far more local, terrestrial radio. So, you're trying to connect with your city audience, with your local audience. Also, it's usually live. So your lingo, what you're saying, everything is, very specific to that day or that particular time. Podcast, as I have learned, is, that a good podcast ideally shouldn't have a very specific shelf life, right? It should be for keeps. It should be something, that people want to come back to and they can listen to whenever they have the time. But the core remains the same, which is to make every person who's listening, to make them feel like you're talking to them. That is what radio has taught us. And that is something that helps you build a good podcast, which is intimate, which the other person feels like you have managed to connect with them in some way. But I think as the grammar, as far as grammar is concerned, there are of course some very, very basic difference between the two.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. That was so well put. There's a question that I think would be the last question that we take for this session, because I don't assume, we love our voices a lot, guys, but you don't have to stay with us for more than an hour. Don't assume that we'd want you to do that. However, in the face of digital and in the face of everyone saying, one of the biggest things that I will never forget is that one of our radio stations dropped the name radio from their station. and they're just known as the brand now. Okay. And that to me is just so indicative of what we're all becoming. Okay. So that's Radio Mirchi. In case you're playing guessing games, don't do it. Okay. Now they just call themselves Mirchi, because they believe that it's no longer radio. And that's, I think, a great setup to the question, which is radio losing its essence? And where do you guys see radio in the next 5 years? Kay, I want to start with you.
Sure. I just want to check. Am I coming through clearly? Yes. Yeah.
Go for it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So from that perspective, I feel like if you need indications of where radio is going to go in the next 5 years, it's very easy. You just, and I hate to say look to the west or whatever, but the truth is that look to the west. If you see how radio is done in markets like Dubai, in markets like Australia, they largely have become places where, say, for example, you have a host who does, whatever they do and on a live radio show. And then also you have this beautiful other side of where they're connecting live and things like that, but that's also streamed live. So I feel like radio is going to become a broadcast medium. It already is a broadcast medium, but stay with me when I say this. It's going to become more of a live streamed broadcast show. And I think it's going to evolve in that. So that I think that's fundamentally what it is. It is going to become a digital first radio station, and trust me, it'll be so unique because no local content creator, right? No girl from Borivali who's doing TikTok reels and stuff like that will have the kind of access to studios and setup and whatnot that radio has. So that's a very indicative of where I feel radio is going in the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you for that, Kay. I want to take this to Rishi.
It's a question that television got asked a lot when the OTT wave happened. And look where television is at now. Indian Idol, KBC, and Big Boss are rating higher than ever before. So I liken podcasts to you in your own chauffeur-driven car or driving your car yourself. So if you're going from Lajpat Nagar to Delhi University in Delhi, or if you're going from Bandra to Andheri, podcasting or streaming services is you in your own car. You want to stop for a coffee at a Starbucks, you want to meet a friend on the way, feel free to do it, but it will get you to from point A to point B. And I look upon radio as public transport. There are enough people still taking buses and trains. They also go from Bandra to Andheri, and they also go from Lajpat Nagar to Delhi University, but they have no control over where they want to stop. They can't say, I want to stop and do a coffee at Starbucks. They stop at predetermined locations. So there will always be a market for both. There will be streaming services on demand, and there will be radio stations who will, be broadcasting. Now, whether they remain pure terrestrial or digital is something that is a foregone conclusion. It's become a broadcast medium, so it's terrestrial come digital.
What a great question and what a great answer. This, please, I'm saying right now only to my team, promo card ki dal denge, hamesha ke liye Hrishikesh Kannan ke greatest quotes forever hoga ye. This is amazing, Rishi. Thank you. Please write a book. I mean, I'll make it a t-shirt. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to write all this on my t-shirt. Okay, amazing. Stutee, where do you see this, man?
As long as Pradhan Seva comes on radio is going nowhere. So we can be rest assured. But honestly, like I after Rishi, ab main kya bolu? I think he's put it perfectly. But my only wish is that I wish we stop becoming clones of each other. That's the only thing that I feel sad about, because radio even now has so much potential, that unexplored potential that needs needs an outlet. But otherwise, I think we need to evolve. We're doing that as radio professionals. We're doing that. Radio stations are doing that. The fact that we're going digital, that we understand that the world is changing, and we're trying to reach our audience in whatever way possible. But I think as
Stutee, I think for a second you've frozen there.
Yeah.
So while Stutee comes back, I want to recommend. Look who's talking.
She's back. She's back. By the way.
She's back.
Am I back? Okay. So you heard me.
Yes, we did hear you.
So where should I continue from?
The last 10 seconds. The last 10 seconds.
So yeah, so as long as we know that we need to innovate and we understand that there are people who are still tuned into radio and they're listening to you and you value their time and you value the fact that there is appointment listenership and at 9 a.m. or 5 in the evening, they want to listen to their favorite RJ play the songs that they enjoy. And you do both radio and digital with equal sincerity. I don't think as radio professionals we need to worry.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Stutee. Closing comments. Preet says, as a content creator, what is the one thing that you wish to do differently or create apart from the current set trends? As I said, time right now is for radio to set trends and not to follow them. So inshallah, we will. All right. And that is a great way to end this. It's past 7 and we started sharp at 6. So I just want to say, guys, a quick couple of recommendations that I want to leave you with, especially if you're somebody who runs a radio station outside of the country. FabMarket, of course, is the beautiful place where you get these wonderful talents giving us your time and your expertise and your podcasts and your shows. Hrishi K has this amazing show. It's a celebrity show. It's called Look Who's Talking. Trust me, if you fell in love with him today, this is a show that you want to take home and play on your radio station. I already we've all talked about Stutee's podcast. So at some point, if you want to, syndicate that towards your brands, please let us know. And K, of course, anything he does, if you want to just don't steal K, okay? Just don't steal him. Everything else that he does, you can have access to at the FabMarket, because all of these wonderful talents are at the FabMarket. What's going to be interesting is that this is a preliminary discussion. Maybe a year from now, as I said, we'll come back, we'll relook at our digital scapes, and maybe we'll talk to ourselves, in a different light. But this is the most honest gathering of presenters who spend so much time in a medium and are now, of course, doing another medium. So thank you so much, Hrishi K, as well as Stutee, for being with me today. And I hope that you enjoyed your time with us today.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
3 cheers for
Absolutely,
Rohini
Rohini.
for
Yeah,
being a
great job,
fantastic
Rohini.
moderator.
Thank you very much.
Little round of
Thank
applause.
you
One
very
second.
much.
Where's that?
Thank you so much. Guys, please feel free to follow us on our Instagram and our Twitter handles. Okay, so
Yes.
Hrishi K, as well as Stutee. So we're all on Instagram. Send us a message if you liked what we said today, and we will see you for the next time. Take care. Ciao.